Starts up the mission, you will.
Hello, welcome to Xbox On's big Anthem breakdown. I'm Leah, I'm here with Sam to tell you all the reasons why you should be playing Anthem when it releases in February, and trust me, there are a lot of them. You can be one of the first on console to play the full game using the EA Access 10-hour demo from the 15th of February. So without further ado, let's just jump right in.
Watertight seals are holding. Shall I call in more freelancers?
No time. We can't risk this getting worse.
First things first, we can expect a vivid campaign with a huge universe lovingly handcrafted by the folks at BioWare. This is a brand new IP, set in its own bespoke lands, complete with heroes, villains, and even sort of like a weird murky bit in between. You're a freelancer, a human gifted with the opportunity to use exosuits known as Javelins to explore the vast expanses of dangerous lands around your home base, Fort Tarsis. It's a weird world out there, foremost due to these huge tools of creation that have been left behind by the absent beings known as the Shapers. The Shapers harness the power of this huge omnipresent energy, known as the Anthem, in order to terraform and create all manner of things, from mountains to beings. When the Shapers disappeared, factions of beings tried to use their tools for their own, often nefarious plans. But the Anthem of creation doesn't like being controlled, and it makes that fact well known. Terrifying cataclysms spawning misshapen creatures are born, and it's the freelancers' jobs, which is you by the way, they need to stop this happening, to protect Fort Tarsis and beyond. Freelancers were once considered heroes. That's not so much the case these days. As you roam the lands and explore, you'll find loads of artifacts and information that'll be collected in your Cortex, a library of information that you can access at any time from the menu. The story sounds so intense already, and this is really just only the beginning. When you jump in, you'll be playing as a freelancer in one of 4 Javelin exosuits that have been passed down from generations and wielded only by a special few people, a bit like a lightsaber that you wear. So you should feel really special, because you are. As you'll play, you'll get to unlock further Javelins and find one that suits your style. You'll start as a ranger, a great all-rounder that should introduce you to the gameplay nicely. And then you can choose between a Colossus, big tanky chunky boy, Storm, the juggler of elemental energy, or an Interceptor, a roguish blade enthusiast, real speedy. Or you could just stick with a ranger if you're already a fan. You'll eventually get to unlock all of them and switch between them as and when you please.
One of the first things that hits you in the eyeballs is just how freaking great the graphics and environments are going to look on the Xbox One X. Everything is so intricately detailed, from the player models to the wild creatures. It looks like so much care has been taken with every single aspect. The characters look unique and memorable and just generally pretty cool, and this also extends to your Javelin suit, where you can customize the actual material of every single part of your suit to really make it your own. The weather effects are super cool in stunning 4K Ultra HD, like the way the rain changes as you fly, and the server has dynamic weather, so the weather will change as you play, but it's consistent over every player in the server and ties into the world events that happen periodically while you explore. All the elemental abilities like fire and ice look stunning in HDR and affects the environment as well as the target. Falling into lava will overheat your suit, lightning will hit you if you stay still for too long, but at least you'll look cool while you panic trying to recover. Basically, we're in love with the way it looks.
Here we are, freelancer. You ready to jump in?
Yes, I am.
In a game like Anthem, you'll have hours roaming around and shooting the bad guys at your own pace. But what happens when you reach the end of the tasty story content? You'll reach endgame, and the endgame is all about putting a lot of hours into the game to get that delicious gear you want. When you're putting in that many hours to the story and endgame, the gameplay has to feel amazing to keep you entertained, and we really feel Anthem has nailed it here with each aspect. You're incredibly mobile. You can roam around running, but you'll mostly be in the air flying from point A to point B, something the map strongly encourages with its heavy emphasis on verticality. And flying feels amazing. You have these cool animations that are different for each Javelin when you activate the flight mechanism. Flying is quite forgiving, but you will smack straight into walls if you're not paying attention. You won't take any damage from hitting the walls or falling, but it does waste time as you come back to your senses. You can dodge while in mid-air to quickly change direction, grab cover, or get close into an enemy to slam down a mid-air melee. Using your flight and dodge abilities causes your Javelin suit to gradually overheat, and once it reaches the top temperature, you won't be able to use these movement mechanics until you've cooled down, either by waiting or jumping into some water, which makes sense, right? That makes you think a bit more about what movement abilities you're using and when. You can't just spam them. Enemies will fire grenades at you, which will overheat your suit, leaving you stuck. Luckily, every action is extremely responsive, so you can dodge out of the way of those grenades and into safety very quickly. But if you're caught out, things can get nasty very quickly. But movement is really only half the battle. Your tools of destruction are of course incredibly important. You have a primary, a secondary, and you can sort of mix and match these slots. If you want to run 2 shotguns, you can. You'll have 3 abilities on top of these, which we'll go into more detail about in a bit. but the cooldowns on these abilities is very low. That enables you to be moving around, dodging, and using your abilities strategically while dipping in and out. So everything has this hectic yet precise feeling, and you know you have complete control over while you're playing. You'll also notice that aiming is fairly forgiving. It's a deliberate choice, so you aren't really punished for moving around a ton, and the gameplay feels really satisfying as a result. All in all, it feels like a breath of fresh air to play.
So earlier we mentioned abilities, the cool additional things you can do that are unique to each Javelin suit. At first, you can choose 2 abilities in the left-hand slots. These are largely offensive skills you can use to boost your damage. The cooldowns are generally short, meaning they can be used quite often. Ability types are varying. Storm has this one where you can throw ice chips, which will apply a status effect and eventually freeze the target. Interceptor has an acid grenade you can charge up to increase its effectiveness. You can choose to spam smaller, less effective acid grenades, or hold the bumper for something a little bit more harder hitting. After so long, you will unlock a 3rd ability on each Javelin. This is reserved mainly for support items, like a force wall that blocks projectiles, or an ability that removes status effects from your allies. Status effects are going to be a big deal, and are one of the cooler things you can experiment with as you play. Coordinating with your team and paying attention are important if you want to play at the higher levels. If you freeze a turret and someone else uses a fire ability, they're potentially ruining the opportunity for risk-free DPS that wouldn't unfreeze it. Some enemies have shields that aren't strongly affected by anything other than pure kinetic damage, aka from your gun, or from lightning abilities, which is something to bear in mind if you want to team up and create an effective and efficient death squad. The abilities and their status effects also interact with you and your suit. If a player uses a freeze grenade, for example, this can help stop your Javelin suit from overheating. Running into your own fire will create more issues for you than just creating damage, and jumping into lava will again affect your movement abilities as well as hurting you, so you gotta watch out for all the ways you'll be affected by everything out there in the world. You're also highly encouraged and rewarded for combining your abilities to make powerful combos, from simpler things like freezing an enemy and using a smashing melee attack, to working together with your team to cripple the opposition before delivering that final blow. It's important to note that large enemies like Titans won't be as affected by a status effect as the smaller ones, but even if that freeze ability doesn't cripple their movement, the status effect will still be applied to them and can still be comboed with to maximize DPS. All the subtler details of your components and builds should be considered here, so you can be the very best you can be. At first, you'll start with basic options that you can later choose to craft and upgrade using blueprints found in the wild. This is just one part of increasing your power. Another important thing to consider are your components. 7 customizable slots on your Javelin suit that you can utilize to make the suit really feel like yours. These include ability buffs, like making fire abilities 20% more effective, movement buffs, and more. Being smart with the skills you equip combined with the components you're using are 2 of the vital parts of endgame, where your Javelin build is the focus. You can create sets for your Javelin that have specific uses. For example, a build that would be super effective against certain factions of enemies, or one that helps buff your team. You can switch out which build you want to use before missions, so you're always prepared for every eventuality.
No, this area is too important to let those stars destroy everything.
I understand.
One of the big draws in Anthem is the crafting system. As you roam around the lands, causing or calming the chaos, you'll find various environmental plants, outcroppings, and more that can be looted for chimeric materials. You'll want to keep hold of these because they, along with the other dangerous byproducts of the Anthem, known as embers, are key to leveling yourself up. Specific missions will have higher chances of dropping certain materials. When you complete missions, you'll also find blueprints for abilities, weapons, and more, and raw weapons that you can dismantle to get some more materials. Head to your forge and you'll have the opportunity to craft using the blueprints you found. They come in various rarities depending on the types of embers you've collected. When you craft a weapon, it'll be created with different roles, meaning each weapon you create has a chance to be sort of unique to you. But if you've played any games with similar systems, you'll know there will always be more coveted perks to make you extra effective. If you don't get the roll you wanted, there's no way to actually re-roll the weapon, so you have to dismantle the weapon and then you get some of your materials back and then you sort of have to recreate it until you get what you're after. You'll eventually be looking for masterwork or legendary weapons, which will roll with multiple legendary perks and passives. I imagine getting a perfect gun with multiple good perks will be quite difficult, and it seems at the moment that's where really the grind and frustration might be.
There has to be some reason for it all.
It's the riddle of our world. And this one's waking up. I detect intense energy deeper in.
One of the things that really stood out to me is just how much you can customize your javelins to make them feel like yours. There are tons of cosmetic options. You can change each individual material on your suit alongside the color, and the materials you choose will change the way the color applies, from muted fabrics to offensively shiny chromes. There are also decals you can apply to your armor, plus different armors to wear that you can buy with earned or bought in-game currency. If you want to be a bright pink Power Ranger or just be a classic Iron Man, the only limit there is your imagination. Even the weapons feel more personalized, thanks to not only their range of passive skills, but also the fact that each variant has unique other variants. For example, you can find a basic sniper that behaves as you'd expect a sniper to behave, or you can find one that charges up explosive rounds, or one that fires like a marksman rifle. You can still be a sniper, yet have your own identity within that. As we touched upon earlier, components are a huge way to make your Javelin yours and start you on your way to creating one of the many builds to switch between for different situations. You can have up to 7 components at one time, and they're unlocked slowly as you progress. You can combine effects and tailor them to work with your skills. For example, there'll be components that buff fire damage or give you more armor after a kill. These are going to be super essential for endgame, so you want to pay attention to what you're putting together and what feels good. And as we mentioned earlier, you can make sets that work for specific environments. Maybe some encounters need more movement or lower cooldown options than others. Those milliseconds count on the Grandmaster difficulties. Each Javelin also has different flying animations, which is pretty snazzy, though we aren't sure if these will be changeable by the player in the future. There's also a social hub where you can invite your friends and show off all your lovely suits.
Good work with all the fighting. Exceptionally done.
One of the most important aspects of a game reliant on a new world and story is just how good the story feels to play. In Anthem, I found the characters to be realistic and visually interesting, alongside having amazing voice acting. A great first step to that all-important immersion. The story slowly introduces you to new characters you can find around Fort Tarsis, and you'll hear them in your suit pretty often. You certainly don't feel lonely in the world of Anthem, but I do feel lonely in the real world. Traditionally, the story follows multi-step quests. Rescuing NPCs, fetching items, exploring new locations, that sort of thing. And you sort of go back and report your findings. Each quest is tracked, and you aren't forced into playing that quest at that moment, if you know what I mean. You can choose instead to load into free play to farm those all-important materials, or like do the odd job, or just test out some new abilities, get your aim going. As you play, you'll unlock strongholds, which are more intense 4-man static missions that act like mini raids, culminating in a boss, like an Ascari Elder. Pretty scary. The strongholds have some cool unique mechanics, some of which we've already seen in the beta, and on launch there'll be 3 strongholds that all tie into the story. When you start up a mission or free play, you can choose up to 3 consumables, and that will strategically buff your gameplay, which is very important for the endgame events like strongholds. If you're after a goal to work towards, you'll always want to check out the challenges, which come in 3 tasty flavours. The first daily, the second weekly, and the third monthly. These will give you objectives like kills with certain weapons or in specific areas, or abilities used that you have to sort of complete in order, and then you gain rewards, and you get like in-game currency and XP, get it all. From what we had the chance to play, the quests were fun and engaging, and being immersed in a brand new world full of cool teamwork and opportunities and things to discover definitely helps that.
As we mentioned earlier, one of the main things that will sustain a game like this, aside from regular content injections, is the end game grind potential. You want to have reasons to keep playing, and for the time you spent playing to feel rewarding and worthwhile. Once you're done with the Anthem story, your goal will be to collect and craft the weapons, gear, and components you need to perfect specialized Javelin builds. Doing your daily, weekly, and monthly challenges are a good start, but you'll be focusing on legendary contracts and high difficulty strongholds to get you the best possible drops to be the beefy boy or agile powerhouse you always wanted to be. The contracts run on a rotating basis. Everyone will have the same contract, but you'll have 3 encounters within that contract that are randomly picked from a larger pool. These will change every time you start a contract, meaning the game should stay interesting and unique every single time. You'll be rewarded with epic embers and potentially high-level loot drops, hopefully dropping you that vital role you wanted, or at least being enough to dismantle for materials so you can craft your own. You're fully encouraged to challenge yourself at endgame to play at the higher difficulties with your team. The better you are as a player, the more efficient you'll be in gaining those rewards. If you just want to run around in free play, you can also choose to do this at a higher difficulty, again increasing the quality of loot dropped. You'll find titans stomping about in the wild who can be murdered for your ill-gotten gains if you so desire.
Always glad to see you survive a fight like that. That's all from me today, Freelancer. You have done wonderful work. I'll speak to you soon.
So, that's everything to be excited about in Anthem. As you might have noticed, there's an awful lot to unpack here, and things will probably change as the game progresses, and as new content is added, and as devs look at that all-important player behaviour. If you want to find all the key dates for Anthem, check out our other video on the channel that gives you all the info you need. And if you want to check it out but you aren't sure if it's for you, you can get a 10-hour trial with EA Access on Xbox One to play as much of the game as you can within that time. Thanks for watching. To see more content from us over at Xbox On, hit that subscribe button, or check us out over on mixer.com/Xbox On. Let us know what Javelin you're enjoying in the comments, and thank you for watching. See you next time.